I'm live. Okay, that took a minute. That's why I was caught off guard. I should be prepared. Celtics have won 2 games in a row. Look at that. We don't have to talk about who the opponents were in those 2 games. Nick's team missing a couple of their best players and really struggling Pacers team. But you know what? 2 wins in a row is 2 wins in a row. And tonight the Celtics got things done in overtime. Two of the worst fourth quarter teams in the NBA, the Celtics and the Pacers, and two of the worst teams of the two of the three worst teams in the NBA. The third worst team being the Orlando Magic when it comes to their record in games decided by 5 or less points. The Celtics and the Pacers both awful. And this game was exactly hit both of those standards, was decided by 5 or less, and was tight in the fourth quarter. And so naturally, it went into overtime as neither team is nearly adept enough to be able to pull out a win in the fourth quarter. And both teams had leads in the fourth quarter. The Celtics blew a small lead. The Pacers seemed to have things under control. A small lead, too, with about a minute or so left. The Celtics were able to get a big basket from Jason Tatum for the second time in 3 games. Uh, to tie things up with about with I think this game it was with 3 seconds left or 1 second left or whatever. Similar situation to the next game that they lost just a couple of days ago. This time though, the Pacers weren't able to answer with a buzzer beater to beat the Celtics. Though I think everybody, myself included, thought that was going to be happening tonight. Fortunately for the Celtics, the game went to overtime and the Celtics were able to win there with a final score 101-98. Not a very high scoring game for a game that goes into overtime. And the Celtics defense certainly played really well tonight. Their offense at times really struggled. Really, what a big story of the game was, besides Domantas Sabonis, who had 23 rebounds, 11 points, and 10 assists, monster stat line there, was it didn't matter because they won the game. They did still get scored in the fourth quarter by 8. So, nothing really changed all that much other than they ran into a team that's struggling more than they are. And it is 21 and 8 at home. So, make whatever inferences you want. I talked about it a lot on Pick and Roll NBA podcast. Myself and John watching show or listening to that podcast. I talked all about the Celtics first half of the season. So go check that out. That's you can either download that or check it out on this YouTube page if you haven't already. So you don't have to get all into the Celtics, what they've done this half season, specifically tonight. Um, so we'll go into the box score. And before I do that, I see Hitman Hudson and Leonard Kim in the chat. Hitman saying go to Robert Williams. Go Robert Williams. We're definitely going to talk about Rob tonight. I think he's really turned a corner from being a tantalizing talent into a really, really, really good NBA player. And Leonard Kim, it's almost like you want to be losing for most of the game. Maybe that's, I don't know, whatever they're doing working for them. So, I'm on board with them trying anything. So again, final score 101-98 in overtime. The Celtics win. Starters tonight were the typical starting lineup: Tatum, Horford, Rob Williams, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown. All starters except for Rob Williams ended up scoring in digits. Tatum, 42 minutes, 24 points, 7 of 21 shooting the ball. Terrible 0 of 7 from 3. He did hit 10 of his 11 free throw attempts. 12 rebounds, 1 assist, and 8 turnovers for Tatum. That 8 turnovers and that 0 of 7 from 3 are particularly ugly numbers. The 12 rebounds, really positive, and obviously the 24 points, very solid night for Tatum on those fronts. He needs to shoot better from 3, and he needs to cut down on the turnovers, obviously. But when the Celtics needed a big shot, they did turn to him, and he did cash in. So without Jason Tatum hitting that big shot, the Celtics don't win this game. I question the play calling of Coach Udoka at the end of that game. Celtics were down by 2. They had the ball with about, 6 seconds left, inbounding baseline, and they chose Josh Richardson to inbound. I don't have a problem with Richardson being in the game because he's a good, decent shooter. But I don't know why he was the inbound passer. Baseline's a hard position to inbound from. Usually you'd have a taller guy inbound the ball there, or a guy who's kind of known to be a passer. And Tatum on the wing with the catch there, had to hit a hard shot just to send the Celtics into overtime there. So I don't think that the call was great, but sometimes when you're just a really talented offensive player like Jason Tatum is, you can bail out the coach, and that's exactly what happened there. Al Horford, 23 minutes, 1 of 3 from the floor, 1 of 2 from three, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, and just 3 points for Al Horford. As he continues to decline and play, this was, you could see the writing on the wall. And if you've looked at Al Horford's last month or so of games, it's gotten worse and worse and worse steadily, as I think fatigue is really setting in. He played spectacular to start the season, but Ime Udoka just played him way, way, way too many minutes for his age. Um, he was playing him 35, 40 minutes a night. That was not sustainable. And the Celtics are now paying for that, as Horford's game has depreciated quite a bit from the start of the season. Rob Williams was awesome tonight, 41 minutes, 4 or 5 from the floor, perfect 6 of 6 from the free throw line, 12 rebounds, and assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks, 14 points, and a partridge in a pear tree. Rob has really become an impactful player on both ends of the court. If he could just have a little jump shot, a little 12-foot jumper, he would suddenly vault himself into being an all-star caliber center. Especially with how few great centers there are left in basketball. He certainly, if he added a little bit more to his offensive repertoire, could be right in the mix there. Um, as a guy who you're talking about as one of the better centers in the league. Obviously, he's never going to be Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic or anything like that, but he could be Clint Capella or better potentially, which is a huge asset to this team, considering the position where they drafted him and considering he's on a pretty reasonable contract extension they just gave him. Really encouraging. As long as he stays healthy, he impacts the game almost more than anybody because of what he can do defensively, because he's such a great leaper, such a good shot blocker. And he's really, I've had very, very few complaints about Rob Williams as he's starting to play very consistently every game, as he's been able to stay more healthy. That's always sort of been the concern with Rob. Stay healthy, earn the minutes, and then the more you play, the more consistency you'll see out of him. And I think we're starting to see that now. So hopefully he stays healthy for the remainder of the season. They're a completely different team without him. They have nobody who can even come close to replicating what he does on the court. Marcus Smart, solid game, only 23 minutes for him, 4 of 11 from the floor, 2 of 4 from three, 1 of 1 from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, just 1 assist though, which is awfully low for your starting point guard, which has been problematic this season. 1 steal and 11 points. And Jaylen Brown was the MVP of this game. 44 minutes for Jaylen Brown, 11 of 26 from the floor, 3 of 6 from three, 1 of 2 from the free throw line, 15 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block, and 26 points following up from his first career triple double. So Jaylen Brown continues to play at a very high level. Also encouraging that Brown and Tatum both had games of 20 plus points. Leonard, I know we've been talking about that a lot in the chat. It's been few and far between. Well, tonight they did it and they got the win. For if 50 points combined from those two, very, very good. You'll take that all day. As far as the Celtics bench goes, not a lot to write home about. Grant Williams, 26 minutes, 1 of 6 from the floor, 3 points, not good. Ennis Freedom, only 7 minutes, did hit all 3 of his shots for 6 points. So he was solid in his limited playing time. Dennis Schroeder, very poor game for him, 21 minutes, 0 for 4 from the floor. Did hit 5 of his 8 free throw attempts, 5 assists. And 5 points. Kind of troubling that the backup point guard gets more assists than the starting point guard, but the Celtics have bigger problems to worry about than that. And Josh Richardson played 38 minutes, 4 of 9 from the floor, 1 of 3 from three, and 9 points for Richardson. Again, the Celtics come out on top in overtime over the Pacers, 101-98. So now they have 2 wins in a row. Can you read anything into that after that, really devastating loss to the Knicks? They bounced back by beating the Knicks. Granted, they didn't look the exact same because they didn't have Evan Fournier, who was the best player on the court that day against the Celtics when they lost with the buzzer beater to RJ Barrett. And then they beat this Pacers team that has been hit hard by COVID and is struggling mightily this year. So can you really read much into those 2 wins? Hard to say. I would say no. That's obviously, that sounds pessimistic, but it's hard to give the Celtics, the benefit of the doubt now that we're halfway through the season. They're a game below 500. It would be surprising if they change their ways and they aren't what they are. They show that they're more than what they've been. So I can't. I think this has been more a virtue of the opponents. Granted, they have lost to crappy opponents and they beat these past two. So who knows? But it certainly helps the morale in the locker room to win these games, especially overtime games where they've struggled at points this season. So at least they're not going to feel like total crap about themselves, which I'm sure they have for most of this year. They're back at it on Wednesday against the same Pacers team. This time it'll be in Indiana, though. So we'll see how that goes. And then they have two tough games coming up Friday and Saturday at Philadelphia and then against the Chicago Bulls. So those will be two interesting games to watch. If the Celtics are able to beat the Pacers again on Wednesday and get a very rare 3-game win streak for themselves, um, you'll really want to see what they can do against good competition in the Bulls and the 76ers. So we'll see what the Celtics are able to do when they have their rematch on Wednesday against this Pacers team. Just checking in again with the chat before we get out of here. Leonard Kim says, how do you feel about reports the front office doesn't want to split the double J's and that you're loving the development of Time Lord? Yeah, there's a lot of reports from Shams today, from the Athletic, talking about, I think he's still with the Athletic, talking about how the Celtics front office has no intention of trading Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Obviously, if you've been watching me, I'm pretty well on record that they should trade one of them. Um, I don't think it's a sustainable pairing to compete for a championship. And I do think that both of those guys would be highly coveted, and you could get back a really, really significant piece or pieces and make this a better team. You may not get a better player than Brown, just having Brown would. So I obviously don't agree with the thought process. I think that we've seen enough of what Brown and Tatum look like, and they want to tinker with the edges of this team. Well, it's hard to just suddenly build a roster around two guys and have it click when it hasn't before. Who do you trade to get guys that maybe fit with them better? I wouldn't trade Rob Williams at this point just to bring in net better. Obviously, Marcus Smart's been talking about being traded. Okay, but what are you bringing in that makes the team better? I'm all for trades, but I think if you're going to actually make this team better, you need to trade one of your two big chips, which is Tatum or Brown. I'd prefer to play Brown. Um, so I'm thrilled about that. I do believe it. But we'll have to see what happens. I'll certainly be talking more as the season goes on as we approach the trade deadline and more on the other show I do. But thanks everybody for watching, whether you're watching live or you're watching after the fact. I appreciate you all, and I'll be back for the Celtics on Wednesday as they take on this exact same Indiana Pacers team in Indianapolis. Everybody,